So while draft weekend is over and the Buffalo Bills are about as close to a final roster going into the 2022 season, and here are my grades. Yo ho ho Da Mafia, welcome to yet another edition of the Da Mafia Report. And the 2022 NFL Draft ended on Saturday evening, and we have a pretty good understanding of how this Buffalo Bills roster is going to look going into the 2022 season. So in today's video, we're going to be going through each and every single pick, and we're going to be reflecting on what exactly was going through Brandon Beane's and the front office's mind, and whether or not that these draft picks are going to make an immediate impact on this roster. Right before I do that, just want to give a quick little reminder. The easiest way to support this channel is simply by smashing the ever-living out of the like button. But say, for example, you ever want to go the extra mile, Patreon is the way to do it. You can find that information in my description. So yeah, Da Mafia, really when it came down into looking at all of my previous draft content, let's just say that I barely got anything right. But in my defense, you never really get anything right when it comes into the draft, especially since Brandon Beane ended up taking over. Now, I'm still trying to train myself into trusting our GM. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. He has hit on more picks than he has absolutely busted on. And while I'm sure several of you knew that I was a massive Breece Hall fan, I was pounding the table that we ended up grabbing him at pick number 25. That didn't end up happening, but I was absolutely thrilled after maybe a day or two of pouting that we didn't get who I wanted with the cornerback in Kaiir Elam, who was actually our very first pick. We ended up trading up into 23 to absolutely nab this guy. Now, there was no question that we needed a cornerback going into the draft, especially since we ended up losing Levi Wallace and Trey White. As much as we're trying to be optimistic that he will be back at the very beginning of the 2022 season, there's a possibility that he may be out a couple of weeks as he is still nursing that ACL tear that he suffered last year in New Orleans. But when you look at on day one, when we ended up bringing Elam onto this team, we are getting an absolute specimen when it comes down into the cornerback position. He stands at about 6'1", and probably the most exciting thing about him is that he's fast as shit, frankly. Ran a 4.3 40, and especially once you end up getting a player like Tyreek Hill in this division, we need some speed in the secondary. Outside of Elam, the next fastest person in the depth chart in the overall secondary, that's including safeties, was Trey White, who ended up running about a 4.5, 4.49. So speed has never really been something that the Buffalo Bills secondary has been known for. So this is going to be incredible. When he was at University of Florida, he was their lockdown corner, and he was really only averaged being targeted 3.5 times per game. So quarterbacks were absolutely scared to target this man due to his overall efficiency. And I think that this is going to translate very well into the Buffalo Bills secondary. The only red flag that I see is the fact that he is a very, very, very physical player. And when I say physical, he racks up quite a few penalties. And we know how fantastic the officiating is in the NFL, so might be something that we need to watch out for, but I'm really hoping that as he makes that next step into the NFL that he can clean that up. But overall, love this pick. I really think that he's going to be lining up outside of Trey White, and I think there's no way in hell that Dane Jackson is going to beat him out right in the depth chart, and he's going to be a day one sort of guy. Next up on day two is running back James Cook out of the University of Georgia. Fun fact, he is actually Dalvin Cook's brother. Who knew that Dalvin Cook had a brother in the first place? Not I. And so we're getting a guy that had an 85 PFF rating, and he also ended up racking up about 790 yards in 2021 with the national champions UGA Bulldogs. Now, he's going to be very complimentary when it comes down into Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Me personally, I think that he is automatically the best running back on this roster, and that's very premature. We have to see how training camp rolls out. But he does bring a degree of speed, and he also brings a massive degree of the ability to catch the football. Now, many of you know that I was pounding the table for Breece Hall, and I would have been completely fine with Kenneth Walker, but unfortunately both of those names ended up being taken off the board before the Buffalo Bills ended up getting into their second round. James Cook, I think, is going to be an excellent addition to the backfield, and to be completely honest with you, I think that that's going to be a coin toss of what other running back ends up making this team. The casualty is either going to be Duke Johnson, who is more than likely to be the casualty, or Zach Moss, in my opinion. But I also see James Cook being a huge contributor to this overall offense based off of his pass catching ability alone. Next up in round 3, the Buffalo Bills ended up picking Terrell Bernard, a linebacker out of Baylor. Now, this is very interesting because he is considered to be on the smaller side when it comes into linebackers. Several reports are saying that he's probably going to lean a bit more to the safety side as he progresses in the NFL career. What I think was going through Brandon Beane's mind was his ability to be an immediate contributor on special teams. I don't see him really being a large contributor as a starting linebacker on this team due to his size alone, and also a massive red flag is the point that he ended up missing a shit ton of tackles recently. And so in fact, he ended up owning a 14.8% chance that he was going to miss a tackle in college, and something that's definitely going to have to be cleaned up if he wants to have any type of future in the NFL. However, one thing that will be super beneficial to the Bills is that he just so happens to be a great special teamer, and sounds like that he will be a contributor to that piece on day one as well. So out of those first 3 picks, it is absolutely apparent that Brandon Beane was making picks based off of players that could legitimately start and take the field on day one. Next up was round 5 when we ended up picking up Khalil Shakur, right out of Boise State. Right, according to reports, this man was a human highlight reel for Boise State. His body control and hands are what this report is saying is stuff of a legend. He ended up putting over 1,000 yards and absolutely dominated out of the slot when he was over in Boise State. His first impression from this pick is that this is clearly a depth move from the front office. More than likely, Jamison Crowder is going to be the guy that's going to be controlling out of the slot this year. We do know, however, that he has had a pretty rough history with injury. So I think that adding depth right to this room and bringing on a receiver like Shakir is going to be something that's going to benefit the Buffalo Bills. And who knows, he might be somebody that can make a contribution later on as we slowly progress him into his NFL career. And then going into round 6, we ended up picking up Matt Araiza, who is coined as the punt god. This guy was probably one of the most decorated punters in the entire NCAA, and he was on top of a lot of massive draft boards. I mean, this guy ended up going ahead and punting up an 83-yard. I mean, he absolutely has a beautiful leg and a lot of talent, and I think that he's going to transition into this team very well, especially when your competition is Matt Hawk. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. We have been having something missing, and ever since we lost out on Corey Bojorquez. Now, the only concern with Matt Erazia is the fact that we don't really know how effective of a holder he is going to be, especially when he's going into the Buffalo Bills, who, let's be honest with ourselves, rarely punt in the first place. He could have the best leg on the face of the planet, but when it comes up into putting points on the board, holding is going to be imperative. And say, for example, that he doesn't end up making this team, that's going to be the exact reason why. But based off of his leg talent alone, I'm crossing my fingers that he could make as many adjustments as possible. And right now, I'm hoping that he is practicing all holding technique from this very moment right up until training camp, because I want to see some Matt Erazia punts, because normally I get pissed off when the Buffalo Bills need to punt. Let's make that happen. Last but not least, we did end up drafting Benford from Villanova, a cornerback. Luke Tenuta is a Virginia Tech tackle, and then linebacker Balin Spector out of Clemson. All 3 of these guys obviously had some flashpoints that attracted them to being drafted in general, and not even slipping down that pipeline of being an undrafted free agent. However, I see a lot of these just being pure depth moves. Wouldn't be surprised if Benford could go on ahead and actually make a fight, considering how spread thin our cornerback room is in general. But those last 3 names are, in my opinion, more than likely going to be practice squad guys or not making the team whatsoever. So, Dom Mafia, that is my breakdown of the overall draft. Say that I had to give it a grade, I would probably have to give it a B-. I was really hoping that we would have addressed the interior offensive line piece, but right outside of the tackle that we ended up taking in the 6th really didn't help out that necessity. It sounds like the Bills have a lot of confidence in Saffold, who we ended up bringing in, but I'm going to have to give it a B-. I think we ended up addressing our cornerback room and speed, who's going to be able to sort of keep up with some of the faster receivers in our division, and then also our running back room as well. So I'd say overall a B-. Do me a favor and go on ahead and leave your draft grade in the comments. Always love hearing it. And before I let you go, you better always remember, let's go Buffalo.